Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank CPR to invite me to spend very interesting 2 weeks here in India. And my name is Fei Teng. I'm from Institute of Energy, Environment and Economy, Tsinghua University. Today, I'd like to share some of the recent development of climate change policy in China, and especially I will focus on the progress in the 12th Five-Year Plan. So the outline of my today's talk, I will first start from to understand China's 40% to 45% target. What is the logic and background behind those numbers proposed as Cancun pledges from China? And then how to achieve this? What is the policy arrangement for China to achieve this target in the previous years? And then what is changing from the previous 11th Five-Year Plan to the next 12th Five-Year Plan? The policy shift from a previous command and control policy to more market-based mechanism, including the ETS. And then I will talk about the new drivers for more mitigation policies in China, the air quality concerns and its implication on the future China's mitigation and climate policies, and then some concluding remarks. Firstly, I will start from to understand China's Cancun pledges numbers 40 to 45%. I think there is a very brief background on China's booming economy in the past 30 years. The annual average growth rate is almost 10% in the past 30 years. And especially this growth trend is accelerated after China getting to the WTO in 2001. So at present, almost 1/3 of our emission, in fact, is due to the export. And the increased emission and also the increased growth of our economy is driven by the increasing investment and export, and also the rapid industrialization and urbanization. The annual increase rate of urbanization in China is almost 1% 1 year. And together with this booming growth of economy, the primary energy consumption and primary energy demand is also growing very fast in China. The energy demand increased in last 30 years together with growth of economy. The annual growth rate of the energy consumption, energy demand is about 5.6%, compared with the 10% of the growth rate of the economy. And energy intensity decreased continuously in the previous years. Was in the 10th Five-Year Plan it decreased, but there is a rebound from the year 2008. That is why in the 11th Five-Year Plan, China introduced energy intensity target to cope with this rebound trend of energy intensity. Because of this kind of rebound of trend bring a lot of concerns regarding to the supply risk of energy and also the environmental risk of the environmental problem due to the consumption production of the energy. And that is why in the 11th Five-Year Plan, the Chinese government firstly introduced energy intensity reduction target, which is set as a mandatory target in China. And the 11th Five-Year Plan gave a reduction of energy intensity target of 20% by year 2010 from the year 2005 level, and followed by the 12th Five-Year Plan, which gave a 60% target to reduce from 2010 level by year 2015. And this aim of this energy intensity reduction target is to integrate energy conservation into China's economic and social development plans, and as a mandatory target that to evaluate both the national and also the local performance. And after the 11th Five-Year Plan, that before the Copenhagen COP meetings, that China issued its mitigation actions, which is interpreted in terms of emission intensity So not only energy intensity, but also emission intensity. I think it is well known by all of you that the target is to reduce the emission intensity per unit of GDP by 40 to 45% by year 2020 compared to the year 2005 level. So I would like to spend a little bit time to explain why we propose this 40 to 45%. Firstly, in fact, this number is based on a trend analysis from the past trend in previous years. For example, that from 1990 to 2005, in the past 15 years, the GDP energy intensity reduced about 47%. So the annual reduction rate is almost 4%. And from the year 2005 to year 2008, that is the year when we proposed energy intensity. The GDP energy intensity reduced by almost 10%. So in the past 3 years, when we make the decision, the annual reduction rate is about 3.5%. And based on those kind of estimation, the 4% and the 3.5%, at that time, we estimate GDP carbon intensity will reduce by 40 to 45%. So this number, in fact, came from a trend analysis in the previous years. And we also consider these numbers from the perspective of energy elasticities. That means if you grow your economy by 1%, how many percent of energy increase you need to support this kind of growth of economy? And generally that from the year 2005 to year 2008, the average GDP growth rate is about 11%, and energy intensity reduced by 10%. So the energy elasticity in those 3 years is about 0.65. And then we make some two different kind of scenario. The first scenario is a high growth scenario, and we expect the GDP growth rate will be 9%. And for the low scenario, it will be 7.5%. And then we consider two different energy elasticity scenarios. For the normal scenarios or the BAU scenarios, the energy elasticity will be the same as those elasticity in past 3 years. So it will be 0.65. Otherwise, we consider a more ambitious scenario, which the growth of economy can be supported by less energy. So the energy elasticity will be 0.5. And under those four combination of scenarios, you can see the carbon intensity can be reduced by a range of 40 to 50%. And then we consider to use a safer range that is 40 to 45%. That is the perspective from the energy elasticity. So why we propose those 40 to 55 numbers, in fact, is based on the trend analysis from both annual reduction rate of energy intensity and the energy elasticities. So from those two perspectives, we propose this 40 to 45%. And those numbers is important because of in the very end, we will discuss its implication for China's future mitigation goals. And then after we propose these numbers, the question is how to achieve this. In fact, we in China, in the previous 5-year plan, we focus on the command and control policies. That means we allocate this national-wide target to different provinces. And in the 11th 5-year plan, because the government is still not very acknowledged how to allocate this based on equitable and effective way. So generally, they follow a uniform allocation approach. That means use almost the same numbers for all provinces, regardless of their difference. So you can see from this table that the reduction rate allocated to each provinces, they are almost the same. Most of them each is equal to the national number, that is 20%. So generally 20% for all. But there are some difference that is due to the negotiations between local government and the central government. And this uniform allocation approach meet a lot of difficulty and problems in 11th 5-year plan. Because of this uniform allocation neglect the difference between different provinces. In China, the development stage and the energy intensity of provincial level is quite different. You can see from the figure that energy intensity is quite different from south to north and from east to west. Generally, that those coast areas, they have the lower energy intensity. For those provinces in the west and north of China, they have higher energy intensity. And also, this energy intensity at province level is quite linked with the stage of development. You can see that for those provinces which has higher level of per capita GDP, their energy intensity is relatively lower. But for the poor province, their energy intensity is much higher. And also, if you look at the growth rate, you can see different pictures. The growth rate in different provinces is quite different. Well, some of them, they have a much higher growth rate, which is closer to 20%. But some of them, they have a lower growth rate, lower than 10%. And also the energy intensity is quite different from south to north and from east to west. And not only for that, but for those benchmarkings of product level energy intensity is quite different. I give an example here, that is the energy intensity of value added intensity in air and steel sectors. You can see that for some provinces, their energy intensity per tons of air and steel is almost 3 or 4 times of other provinces. So this kind of challenge make it difficult in China to use the similar EU benchmarking approach, that is tree-peak approach, that mainly focus on the sectoral benchmarking in industry. So in China, it's very difficult to use this because of this challenge in sector benchmarking. And so in the 12th five-year plan, the NDRC considered another framework. That means to use an index or indicator-based framework to allocate the national target to different provinces in a more equitable and more effective manner. And NDRC considered 4 different aspects. First is the responsibility. They think that if a province, they have a higher per capita GDP, and then they have more responsibility to reduce their intensity. And they use different indicators to represent to measure this responsibility. And the second aspect is the potential. And NDRC think that if for a province, if they has a higher energy intensity, that means they has higher potential and they should be allocated more. So they use those different indicators to measure the potential. And please.
Is the provincial target?
Yeah, it is a provincial target.
Is it carbon intensity or energy intensity?
It's energy intensity.
Not carbon intensity.
But carbon intensity, I will talk later. The carbon intensity target is associated with energy intensity target, but they only have 1% or 0.5% difference because of the energy mixture difference in different provinces. So here we only focus on energy intensity or location. And the third aspect is ability, that the ability of the province to pay for this. And third one is, and the fourth one is the obstacles. So based on those four aspects of indicators, the NDRC firstly gave an initial allocation of the national target to different provinces. And the Chinese government grouped those provinces into 4 groups and considered 3 scenarios. Because of this allocation study is made before the official publication of 12 five-year plan. At that time, it's still not decided whether we should choose 15%, 16%, or 17% as the target in the 12th plan. So they test both 3 targets. And then they group different provinces into different groups based on those indicators we have talked about. And that is the starting point of the negotiation between local government and central government, that means NDRC. And after several rounds of discussions and negotiations between local government and central government, that is the final result. you can see that final result is a little bit slightly different from previous proposal from NTRC. Was the final result is the provinces are grouped into 5 instead of 4, and they give different allocated target to those different provinces, range from 10% as the lowest one to the 18% as the highest one, and to make sure that the aggregation of the local target is equal to the national wide target of 16%. That is the final allocation contained in the National Energy Conservation Plan for 12 5 years. And generally, that this kind of location is improvement compared with the 11th 5 years, because of they consider more equity issues and more potentials and other aspects which can affect the effectiveness and efficiency of this allocation. For those big provinces, they are more rich and they have more economic size. They have been allocated by a higher target, and especially for those provinces in coastal areas and also those provinces with higher GDP per capita. But for less developed provinces, they have a lower target, and especially for those western provinces and also those provinces with a lower GDP per capita. And generally, that at local level, the provinces also adopt the similar methodology to further allocate their province target to the city level or even to the enterprise level. That is the command and control allocation process in China in both 12 years 5 plan and also the 11th 5 year plan. There is a new trend that in the 12 5 year plan is a policy shift from this command and control policy to a market-based mechanism. Because of one important observation in the 11th 5 year plan is this kind of top-down command and control approach is not very efficient. Because of in the last year of 11th 5 year plan, 2010, some political leaders in local level, they just shut down their industries and the power plant only to achieve this kind of provincial level target allocated by central government. Because of the achievement and progress of those targets will be important factors for their promotion. So they take those kind of actions to make sure that they can achieve this. But this kind of actions is very ineffective and inefficient. So after the 11th 5 year plan, there is a lot of debate in China that whether or not we should move from the previous command and control policy towards more market-based mechanism, which can have a lot of gain in efficiencies. And so that in the year 2011, that the Chinese government issued this 12 5 year plan, which contained a national target for the year from 2015 from the year 2011 to the year 2015, the target to reduce carbon intensity by 17%, and the policy instrument to achieve this target mainly including through aspects. The first one is the pilot program at local level for both low carbon provinces and cities, and also low carbon parks, which emphasize on those emerging industries, and also for the carbon communities in building sectors. And second one is a more comprehensive greenhouse gas reporting and accounting system, which has been considered very important to support this market mechanism, because you have to make sure 1 ton is 1 ton. So need to have this comprehensive reporting and accounting system. And maybe the most important one is the emission trading scheme. The Chinese government considered to introduce this emission trading scheme firstly at local level as a pilot scheme, and then with a view to consider a national level emission trading scheme in year 2015. And here is this roadmap for China's ETS. We consider that we implement those pilot scheme of during the year 2011 to the year 2015, and then after the year 2015, we learn from those regional ETS and to consider idea of national ETS. That is general roadmap we consider in the 12th five-year plan. And so we select 6 pilots at national level. The selection of those regions based on their levels of economic development and also the potential market volume. Based on those 2 aspects, the Chinese government select those 6 pilots as a pilot scheme. And you can see that from these tables, we summarize some economic and energy intensity characteristics of those 6 pilots. And you can see 4 of them, they are ranked as the most rich cities, the most rich provinces in China, like Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, and also Guangdong. And for the energy intensity, there are also those provinces with lower energy intensity. And for other 2 provinces, they are ranked in the middle of the Chinese provinces. And so for all of those 6 pilot projects, they account for about 20% of emission reduction of the whole country's emission. And for the GDP, the share is much more than the share of emission, which account for about 26%. And for those pilot projects at local level, they do have their different own designs. I don't want to get into detail, but this table summarized the major characteristics of those local pilot scheme at present. You can see they are different in terms of threshold, in terms of covered industries, in terms of the allocation scheme, and also the MRV issues. So that gives the concerns of in the future how to link them to form a national ETS, or the national ETS will start from a totally new one. That is one question there's still not very clear answer. How to move from those pilot scheme towards a national-wide ETS. And at this slide, I would like to focus on one point, that is the power industry. Because of in China, the emission from the power industry accounts for about 45%. So it is a major emission factors. And how to cover the power industry into the ETS became extremely important for the success of Chinese ETS pilot scheme and also the future national ETS. And to reduce the emission from power industries, you can have the 2 aspects. The first aspect is to reduce emission in supply side, I mean in the generation side. And the second one is to reduce emission in the demand side, in the consumer side. Generally speaking, that because of the energy elasticity in consumer side is very low, so they will have a lower response to the increase of the electricity price. So almost 90% of the mitigation potential in electric sectors, they are in supply side. So that means that to give energy price incentives in supply side, which is extremely important to achieve this kind of reduction in power industry in China. So in the long run, you need these price signals for low carbon investment, and in the short run, you need these price signals for low carbon dispatch, and also that the price can lead to some consumer response. And through this combination of these 3 aspects, you can achieve this. So, but 90% of them is in fact is due to the investment and dispatch in the supply side. But in China, that there is some kinds of barriers to achieve this because of, firstly, that we have a regulation or regulated price on both wholesale and retail electricity price in our electricity market. So that means with these regulations, there is no way to pass through the cost from upstream generators to downstream wholesalers and also retailers and the consumers. So with this, it will be difficult for China that to really to cover this electric sector in ETS. And the second barriers for this is because of the historical regions. The dispatch system in China is mainly based on a principle we call it equal generation hours. That means each generators will roughly be dispatched based on the principle of equal generation hours instead of economic approach based on their cost, or we call it energy saving approach dispatch based on their carbon or energy intensity. So this dispatch approach is because of historical reasons that the grid companies have signed a lot of long-term contracts with generators. And to make sure the implementation of those long-term contracts, you need to do this through this equal generation hour principles to implement those kind of contract. And because of those conflicts, we have frozen this regulatory reform in electric sectors for almost more than 10 years because of we can't resolve this conflict of interest. And this frozen regulatory reform in electric sectors make the ETS idea is very difficult because of without the moving of this regulatory reform in electricity, it will be very difficult for China to introduce a mechanism to pass through the cost and then to cover the electricity as a whole in the ETS. And so how the current pilot ETS in China to resolve these issues, most of them to resolve these issues by using idea we call the indirect emission. So they cover those electric consumptions, but only to allocate those allowance to consumers and to calculate those indirect emissions due to the consumption of electricity, but not directly to give this allowance of emission to the generators. So that is how that the current pilot scheme in China to resolve these issues. And so by saying that was there are a lot of challenges and problems that we are facing. Although the China is going to shift from a command and control approach towards a more market-based approach, but this market-based approach are facing several challenges and problems we are going to resolve in the future. The first one is the lack of legislation. Although we have conducted this pilot ETS, but we do not have a climate legislation at national level. We have proposed this draft legislation from NDRC at this moment, but it's still not entering into the pipeline of legislation. Generally, that we need at least 8 years from a proposal of legislation till the issue of this legislation by the peoples of Congress. So based on these regulatory cycles, we can expect that the most optimistic estimation for the climate legislation in China is after 2020. And the second challenge is impact to the industries, and especially to those carbon-intensive industries and power industries. Because of this ETS idea is the top-down idea. The government is pushing this idea to the enterprises. So there is not a very good stakeholder consultation in China that to consult industries and those stakeholders regarding to the impact on their own business. And for several pilots, there are already some pushback from the industries to the idea of the ETS. But because of most of the enterprises covered by the ETS will be state-owned enterprise, so generally the government has a strong control on those enterprises. That is why there is pushback from enterprises, but not very strong pushback. And the third challenge we are going to resolve is allocation. It's still not clear what is the rules for fair and transparent allocation at local pilot level. There are a lot of debate, but for almost all the 6 pilot programs, they don't have a clear allocation scheme at this moment. The reason for that is because of the location scheme, in fact, which has huge impact on the enterprise and on their revenues and their profit. So it's a very difficult political negotiations between the government and also the enterprise. And then the last but not least one is the interaction with other policies. We have talked about the possible interactions with regulatory reform in power sector, but there will be more and more interaction problems, like the interaction between the ETS and also the renewable certificates. And another department of NDRC is also pushing the idea of the trading scheme of energy saving certificates. And we also have the trading of the pollutants pushed by the Ministry of Environmental Protection. So how those different ideas they can coordinate and they will interact became a serious problem in the future. So after talk about the most progress in 12 years plan, I would like to shift the last point, which is the air quality, which has been considered as a new driver for more and more ambitious mitigations in China. The reason for that is because of in this year and in previous year, there have been a serious air quality problem in China. We call it the fogs and haze. You may already know this from the media report. Well, here is a picture that one photographers take in the Tiananmen Square. Here is a picture of eight different days in 1 week. You can see that there is only one clear sky, and other 8 days they all full of fogs and haze. And the reason for that is because of the particular matters. You can see that this is the air quality index in Beijing and in Shanghai. The air quality index in Beijing, sometimes they will reach 240, which is very dirty, it means in air. And sometimes they are a little bit dirty, but still more than 100. And the dominant factor is from the particular matters. You can see from those lower numbers, when the particular matters is going up, the air quality index is going up. When the particular matters number is going down, the air quality is becoming better. But for the sulfur dioxide and NOx, they are relatively moderate. They are relatively stable. So air quality problem in China is mainly the problem of particular matters. And that is not only the case in Beijing and Shanghai. That is almost the case for all big and major cities in China. And you can see from the figures that the red dot or the share of the red is the share of the particular matters in air quality index. You can see for almost all Chinese cities, the particular matters dominate the air quality issues. If we want to resolve these air quality issues, we have to resolve these particular matter issues. And this particular matter issues is not only environmental issues, but a political issues in China. The recent publication in the PNAS says that the northern Chinese people suffers from these particular matters, and because of these particular matters, the typical person in northern China will lose almost a 5-year life because of this particular matter. So it has been a very serious political issues in China, and government put a lot of contention on these issues because of this issue related to the social stability. And to resolve these particular matter issues, that gave a lot of pressure in China to pursue a more ambitious target to control the emission, because of a majority of the particular matter in China is in fact came from combustion of fossil fuels. Furthermore, in China, according to the study, the 65% of particular matters in Beijing came from the combustion of fossil fuels. The 43% from the coal combustion, and another 22% came from the transportation, the diesel, the gasoline, those kind of combustions. And in the 43% of coal combustion particular matters, half of them came from the coal combustion in Beijing, and half of them came from the around areas of Beijing. So the particular matters is not a matter of Beijing, but a regional matters, because of the particulate matter can be transported in the air. And so from that perspective, since the last year, in the political debate, the air quality became a more binding issue from my perspective than the energy saving and energy supply risk. Because of in the previous 5-year plan, from my perspective, that the dominant factor is the energy security concern and energy supply risk concern. But after the previous year, the air quality became more binding factors than the energy security and energy supply risk, and became one of the most important priorities in the political agenda before the Chinese government. And how to resolve this? There are a growing and more hotly debated ideas around the coal cap, because of most of the particulate matter is from the coal combustion. So to control this emission of particulate matters, a most strict idea is to give a cap on the coal and to reduce the consumption of the coal. That is the most recently debated issues in China, to impose a cap on the coal consumption. And follows by this coal cap ideas, that is the idea of emission cap. Because of the coal accounts for almost 70% of energy mix in China. So if China can cap the coal consumption, generally China can cap the greenhouse gas emissions. So in the most recent proposal by NDRC, which is the draft national climate change plan, covers the period from 2013 to 2020. In the draft plan, NDRC proposed an aspirational goal to imposing a cap on emission at either national level or regional level to the State Council. This draft has been submitted to the State Council, but it is still not be approved by the State Council. It is be expected maybe the State Council will approve this proposal before the end of this year. So idea is to give a cap, but it should be noticed that the cap is not absolute cap or decreasing cap. It will be a moving cap. That means this cap may be increasing in the next few years or in the next decades, but it will be a cap. So it will be a moving cap, and then maybe followed by a decreasing cap after 2025 or 2030. It depends on the future policies and also that the result from various studies. So I'd like to summarize a little bit to make sure that we have more time for more interactive discussion. So firstly, from this discussion, we can see that the China's mitigation target, in fact, are driven by a combination of various factors, including international pressures, domestic pressures from both energy and environment. So the important point is, from those combination of various factors, which one is the most binding one? In fact, before the Copenhagen, the binding one is the domestic energy consideration, including energy security concerns and energy supply risk concerns. But after 2011, the binding factor is shifting from energy to environment, and that is mainly driven by the air quality issues due to particulate matters. And to resolve these particulate matter issues, which demand the Chinese government to pursue more mitigation in terms of to give a cap of coal, or to pursue more mitigation in terms of greenhouse gases. And to achieve those kind of policy goals, there is also a shift in the policy paradigms. While in the previous 5-year plan, the general logic of policy instrument used by Chinese government is command and control policies to allocate this national target to different local level, from central government to provincial government, and then to the city and enterprise level. But after the 11th 5-year plan, there is a policy shift from this command and control approach towards a more market-based mechanism like EDS. But because of this introduction of the ETS, it interacts with other existing regulatory policies, and it will need more coordination and more attention to manage those interactions among different policies which may exist in the future. And also that we just pass through those part on institutions, but in China, the institutions to deal with climate change is also evolving, and this kind of institutions provides a strong spot for the policy making. But because of these evolving institutions, it also demands a coordination among various institutions. And last but not least point is China moving towards more stringent national policies due to this shift of our national logic and national priorities. But it may need more coordination with other developing countries in terms of how to translate these national policy goals into international goals. So that also means that China, in the future, we need more coordinations with other developing countries like India, that how to translate these national policies into international pledges or international commitment at international level. So coordination will be a key word for China in the future. So by saying that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention and welcome your comments.